deferments on education loan repayment, deferments on commencement of mortgage foreclosures and evictions, and legislation governing credit reports and how defaults should be treated during this corona crisis. So next slide. So how can the CARES Act help you? Let's go through it. So as I said, there's some benefits for individuals and families. Most people earning less than $75,000 are going to be receiving $1,200 checks from the federal government, either through direct deposit or a check. The IRS is going to use your 2019 tax returns to determine your eligibility, unless you haven't filed them, in which case they're going to use the 2018 returns. So individuals will receive $1,200, married couples will receive $2,400, and you'll receive $500 for each minor dependent child under the age of 17. Those checks should be going out hopefully sooner rather than later. The direct deposit is going to go to your checking account where you received your tax refund last year or this year. If they have to mail those out, it's going to take much longer, and unfortunately, there's no real time frame on when they're going to be received. So individuals who file a head of household return will receive the $1,200. They'll receive rebates amounts on a sliding scale. The CARES Act expands unemployment insurance to include a $600 per week increase in benefits for up to 4 months. It also provides insurance coverage for individuals who are typically ineligible, self-employed individuals, and independent contractors. The federal government's going to temporarily fund the first week of unemployment for states that repeal any waiting requirements, and it's going to fund an extra 13 weeks of unemployment benefits. So there are 3 programs available to Florida businesses. There's the newly enacted Paycheck Protection Program that's part of the CARES Act. There's the SBA Economic Injury Disaster Loan and the Florida Small Business Emergency Bridge Loan. You should apply for anything and everything that you can try and get your hands on money-wise. And I've included links for the SBA and the Florida Small Business Loans. So the Paycheck Protection Program. This is one of the most complicated aspects of the plan. It's designed sort of to keep everybody steady in place and reduce the need for people to apply for unemployment by providing a backstop for employers to just keep paying their employees and then get reimbursement through SBA loans. So under the PPP, small businesses harmed anytime from February 15th to June 30th of this year can apply to a local lender who does SBA loans to pay worker compensation, payroll, healthcare costs, mortgages, rent, and utilities. Your business must have been in operation since at least February 15th. You must apply by June 30th, and you really ought to apply as soon as possible. You have to apply to the bank where you do your business banking. You're not going to be able to just walk in. You can't walk in anywhere right now, obviously, but you're not going to be able to go anywhere and go where you don't have a business banking relationship. That's going to be the biggest problem. So next slide. Tiffany, can you click on the next slide? Yeah. So what kind of businesses are eligible? Any small business with less than 500 employees, self-employed individuals, sole proprietors, independent contractors, nonprofits, veterans organizations, certain tribal businesses. They tried to make this as inclusive as possible. It expands assistance to businesses that normally don't meet the small business qualifications for loans. You need to have 2 employees for the Paycheck Protection Program. There's going to be some businesses that aren't going to be eligible. Next slide. Well, let's back up. If you're a sole proprietor, you can you can get it. It's the other SBA loan that needs 2 employees. I apologize for the misstatement. I'll go through that later. So how this is all going to be calculated. So the loan amount's going to be and I hate the math, talk to your accountant on all this. In all cases, the loan maximum is the lesser of either 250% of your average monthly payroll costs or $10 million. Most businesses are going to be getting much less. Calculations for companies that I've been working with are between 25,000 and 100,000 based on their business size, the number of employees, and the costs that are included in the calculations. Those are going to be salary, wages, commission, tips, or other compensation, vacation, parental, family, medical, or sick leave payments, group healthcare benefits and retirement benefits, and state and local tax payments based on employee compensation. So it's also going to you can also use loan proceeds to pay interest on any mortgage, rent, utilities, and any other interest on business debts incurred before February 15th. And for a sole proprietor or independent contractor, the amount that you're going to be able to receive is capped at $100,000 on an individualized basis. Payroll costs do not include, as I said, payroll costs of any individual employee in excess of the $100,000 annualized, payroll taxes, compensation for employees whose principal residence is outside of the United States, excuse me, or any qualified sick leave or medical leave for which a credit is allowed under the Families First Corona Response Act. And that was the legislation that preceded the Response Act. So loan forgiveness in terms, PPP loans do not require a personal guarantee or collateral. You can apply to your lender to forgive the amount of payroll, mortgage interest, rent, and utilities payments made during the 8 weeks after you receive the loan. Your lender may forgive certain loan amounts as long as you keep the same number of employees as you did during the same 2019 period or during the preceding period in January to February of 2020. Lenders may reduce the loan forgiveness if you lower compensation more than 25%. And your lender will not penalize you, however, if you rehire employees that you previously laid off or restore any cut in compensation before June 30th of 2020. So the amount that can be forgiven is going to be proportionate to maintaining your employees and their compensation. To get the forgiveness, you must provide the lender with documents showing the number of employees on payroll, their pay rate, the IRS payroll and state income tax filings and unemployment filings, and then documentation on your mortgage interest, rent, utilities, and other debt payments. The practice pointer that I'm telling people and that I've heard from all accountants that I've spoken to and other professionals dealing with this is that once you get the loan proceeds in your business bank account, open up a separate account or open up a separate set of books to show how you applied these payments so that when the audit takes place and they do that, then you'll be able to easily show how that money was used rather than having to show all your books and records for the entire year or for any period prior to when you got the PPP funds. Any loan amounts not forgiven are going to have a 10-year term with maximum 4% interest rate, and you can defer principal and interest payments for a total of 6 to 12 months after you receive your loan. You can only take out one PP loan, but you can take out other loans that are available to you as long as you spend the money for different purposes. So that was some of the confusion as we're going to talk about the other loans that are available from the SBA and from the state of Florida. You can get those loans, but you can't use them for the payroll and the mortgage or rent and utilities. You're going to want to use this. The SBA is still rolling out requirements for lenders, so some of this is going to be subject to change. So all current SBA 7A lenders are eligible lenders for the payroll protection program. The Department of Treasury is trying to authorize new lenders, including non-bank lenders. We've got a hyperlink for the list. Wells Fargo announced yesterday that they were closing their funding, that they're under a consent decree from their behavior during the foreclosure crisis on the amounts of money that they can lend based on their liquidity reports. They reached that maximum yesterday, so I'm not sure what other Wells Fargo customers are going to do if they haven't gotten to the table yet. Next slide. So we've got some frequently asked questions. So I'm an independent contractor or a gig economy worker. Am I eligible? The answer is yes. The PPP expanded the amount of who was eligible under this program. You've heard about deferring the employer portion of the Social Security payroll tax. Can you do this? Yes, but previously deferred tax payments become due once the PPL is payroll protection loan is forgiven. So you've got to consult your accountant and your payroll provider to make sure that you don't get hit with a bill later. Are guaranteed payments to partners included in payroll costs? Guaranteed payments should not be included in payroll costs, but they're going to be included in computation of net earnings from self-employment at the partner level. And if you've applied for or received an SBA economic injury disaster loan, the EIDL that I'll talk about in a little bit, to cover COVID-19 before payroll protection became available, can you still apply for the loan? The answer is yes, but. So the answer is yes. You can apply for both loans. If you received an EIDL before the PPP becomes available, you'd be eligible to refinance the EIDL into the PPP loan, but you can't take out an EIDL loan and a PPP loan for the same purpose. So you need to be allocating any funds from the two separate loans to different aspects of your business. So what do you need? You need your 2019 business tax returns or year-end 2019 financial statements. You need your 2019 payroll costs and your year-to-date payroll costs through February 15th of this year. You need the number of employees as of December 31 of last year and as of February 15th of this year. And then you need to demonstrate what industry the business falls under when you're applying for the loan. Payroll verification documents that are going to be needed, IRS forms 940, 941, payroll summary 2019 with corresponding bank statements, a W-2 summary, breakdown of payroll benefits, copy of 2019 W-2s for wage earners, and a trailing 12-month profit and loss statement as of the date of the application. So the pros and cons. So the pros are that there's no collateral required, which is rare when, if not impossible, when you're getting a business loan. It can be converted to a grant if you meet certain criteria and if your application for forgiveness is approved. You can have a 10-year repayment term with interest no higher than 10% for the life of the loan with no prepayment penalty. And you can borrow up to 2.5% of your average monthly costs for the business. The cons, we don't know the full criteria for requesting forgiveness or how that's going to be done. Some banks aren't giving the loans yet because they haven't gotten the information on how the SBA is going to deal with the forgiveness criteria, as well as how the SBA is going to backstop the loans. The complicated portion of this is that the federal government authorized the loans, authorized the SBA to work with their approved lenders and to approve other lenders to give out the loans, and then asked the lenders themselves, whether they're the private banks like Center State or Legacy, or the bigger banks like Wells Fargo, Citibank, Bank of America, to give out the loans. And then who's going to pay back the banks if the loans are forgiven as grants? And so that's one of the mysteries right now and one of the things that needs to be worked out. The other con, if you took out an EIDL loan, you may not be eligible to take out a PPP loan, but you should apply and then decline one or roll it into the other. So that's where that is. And we're going to open it up for questions. So. You can use the chat feature to sort of ask questions. Otherwise, we'll go on to the next page and we'll get questions at the end. Can you go to the next slide, Tiffany? So there are two other funding sources in addition to the CARES Act. There's the SBA's Economic Injury Disaster Loan, and there's the Florida Small Business Emergency Bridge Loan. So small businesses have the option to apply for the EIDLs. They may qualify if they sustain substantial injury. This is supposed to be an emergency $10,000 advance and expanded eligibility. I will tell you that I applied for the EIDL $10,000 loan on Thursday. So I should have received it yesterday. It should have been in my bank this morning. It was not. I have a confirmation number from the SBA, and the SBA website now says that processing may take up to 10 days and that they'll contact you with questions or other requests for documentation. So I've heard some people have gotten the 10,000 already. I haven't gotten it, and I couldn't tell you when I'm going to get it, and I can't tell you when you will get it, but you should log in and apply for it and get online for it as quickly as possible. Next slide. So to qualify, you have to have been in business by January 31st of this year, and eligible businesses include small businesses fewer than 500 employees, sole proprietors, independent contractors, cooperatives, and tribal small businesses. And the entities that were eligible to receive EIDLs should be able to access this and other funds as well. Next slide. So the EIDL loans have a maximum 30-year term. Maximum amount is $2 million. Interest rates are generally 3.75% for small businesses and 2.75% for nonprofits. You can defer the payments for 12 months after you receive the loan. There's no loan forgiveness provision in this, but you can refinance and then opt into the PPP's loan forgiveness programs. But the other piece is that even if you don't convert this into a PPP, or even if you can't convert it to a PPP, these loan interest rates and the access to funds are going to be among the best and the most accessible that you could ever see as a business owner. So next slide. So some of the EIDL may require 2 employees, but some of that was subject to change as well. So they keep revising the requirements. The EIDLs, longstanding program with clear guidelines. First payment due in 12 months. Loan term is fixed up to 30 years with no prepayment penalty. You can borrow up to $25,000 unsecured. Goal of the program is to allow you to spread the cost of this short-term disaster over the life of your business, and that you can get a $10,000 advance while the application is pending. There's no loan forgiveness in the cons. There's no loan forgiveness in place. Congress is going to need to enact that. Can we go back? And if you have collateral, you may be required to give the SBA a lien on that property. If you take an EIDL for damage for COVID, you need to coordinate with the PPP and make sure that you're using it for different purposes. I'll get to questions in a little bit. Let's go through the slides. I will read the question and then answer it next time. We'll do those at the end. Keep asking them. The economic injury grants. So this is the $10,000. You don't need, you apply for the EIDL, but it's a 1-page sort of application for the advance. And it's separate from the PPP. So you You go to the website and you ask for that. You get a confirmation number. You separately apply for the EIDL loan. So the CARES Act waives certain requirements, such as showing you're unable to obtain credit from other institutions, and it waived the personal guarantee requirements, and you can apply for the EIDL loan at sba.gov/disaster. So businesses with certain SBA loans. So under the CARES Act, the SBA is covering 6 months of all loans, or on 7A loans, 504 loans, and microloans. This relief will also apply to businesses that take out loans within 6 months of the CARES Act being signed into law. Then the banks will be forgiving portions of that. So please note that the delay of employer side Social Security payroll tax payments, you can defer those, but half have to be paid by 12/31/2021 and the other half by 12/31/2022. And please consult your accountant. The CARES Act created the employee retention credit. You can be eligible for a 50% tax credit on qualified wages paid to employees from March 12th, 2020 to 12/31/2020. And the tax credit expires when the employer reaches the $10,000 per employee maximum, or when the revenue for 2020 quarter is higher than 80% of the gross receipts for the same quarter. This is all designed to keep businesses afloat, to keep employees employed, and to incentivize business owners to stay open. So businesses with 100 or fewer employees, the tax credit applies if the employer had to suspend the business because of a government order or experienced a 50% revenue decline. Businesses with over 100 employees must meet the same requirements, but the credit applies only to wages paid to those on payroll but who are not working. Florida disaster loan. So Florida Small Business Emergency Bridge Loan Program provides businesses with up to 50% bridge loan in the event of a disaster. This is the loan that's available to businesses with 2 to 100 employees only. So if you're a sole proprietor, if you're an independent contractor, if you're in business, as a sole entrepreneur or a solo attorney like me, you're not eligible for the Florida disaster loan. You've got to apply only for the SBA loans. The pros, it's a no interest loan. It can be issued quickly. Cons, repayment starts right away. The first payment's going to be due 30 days after you receive the funds. It's interest free for 1 year, and then the interest rate jumps to 12%. So the question is, how does the SBA determine to make the EIDL loan, credit score, revenue size, etc.? And the answer is that they're not using credit scores or business size to do those loans. They're supposed to be just, you're supposed to be presenting them with the application and the documentation as to your 2019 revenues and employees, and your 2020 revenues and employees, and your expenses, mortgage, rent, utilities, and they're making a loan based on that with no guarantees, no collateral, and no other documentation. So it's supposed to be a much more streamlined program. The problem is that you have to go through your business bank. So, I have clients and colleagues and friends who bank at Northern Trust. Northern Trust isn't doing SBA loans. They don't have a business bank relationship to get that loan. Wells Fargo maxed out on the amount of their loans. If you're banking at Wells Fargo as your business bank, you may not have a place to go to apply. My suggestion in those instances is to contact the SBA directly and see if they can make a referral or if they can provide additional guidance or assistance. So part-time 1099 workers are considered employees for the 2-employee requirement if they're working a certain number of hours, and if everybody adds up into additional hours. But it's a complicated requirement, and you have to check boxes on the application to see whether those employees are going to be eligible. One person said they have an LLC which has part ownership in another LLC. They receive small W-2 wages through their individual LLC, and the balance of income is reported through a K-1 or as guaranteed payments. So does the PPP only apply to the W-2 wages or to the full income up to $100,000? So the answer is that you're going to be applying, and let me walk through this a little. You're going to be applying through the LLC through which you have part ownership of. The LLC that you have part ownership of is going to be applying separately. So you should only be reporting the wages that you are receiving through your individual LLC as a sole proprietor. And those W-2 wages would be what would be eligible for calculating that LLC's loan options. The other LLC is going to apply separately. They both have separate employee identification numbers with the IRS, and that LLC is going to report everybody's wages and income. The IRS may link things, and that may determine whether you get partial payment through one or the other. But you should apply through your LLC, and whoever the managing member of the parent LLC is should be applying for the K-1 or other income payments to its partners. So the other question is, are there criteria? Excuse me, I have this allergy which preceded the coronavirus. Are there criteria to determine how much to loan for partners with guaranteed payments, independent contractors with no W-2? I don't fully understand that question. The independent contractor is going to need to submit his or her application for the various loan and payment programs, and based on the documentation that's provided and the information that's coordinated with the IRS, that's how those payments are supposed to be made. When you fill out the application, you're going to be giving the IRS, the SBA, permission to review your tax returns and to communicate with the IRS based on payments. So those were the 4 questions that I got. I hope this was informative. I know it's a lot of information. You can email me at ron@caniaclawoffice.com. You can email the chamber, and you can call my office and contact me. I'll call you. I'll either answer or call you back, and we'll be happy to answer other questions on this and related SBA and other disaster relief funds or other general business and business management issues during this crisis or afterwards. I appreciate the chamber giving me the opportunity and look forward to being a continued resource to everyone as we try and get through this alone together. So thanks a lot, everybody.
Oh, I like that tagline. Let's get this get alone together. That's excellent. So thank you so much, Ron. There was a lot more to that than I've even studied before, so I really appreciate your expertise on that. I know you spent a lot of time on it. So we're going to be doing Zoom calls every week. Next week, as I mentioned, on the 14th at 12:30, same time, same place. We're going to talk about marketing, PR, and social media. So Cara Clapp from Sack Lunch Marketing will be talking about marketing. Kristen Knopfsinger from Kristen Rose Agency will be talking about PR, and Amanda McMaster from McMaster Media will be talking about social media. So that's next week Tuesday the 14th at 12:30. And also don't forget Delray Morning Live. We'll be producing that tomorrow morning with Amanda Perna and Ryan Wilson, and we're going to have Sharon LaRue from 211 speak, and we're also going to have John Brewer, who I don't know if you've noticed, but he's created the socially distant supper club, so he's doing a lot of good things for our community and our restaurant businesses. So they're on Saturday Morning Live. And don't quote me on this. We're going to see if we can get together our monthly government affairs meeting. It would be on Friday morning at 8. So we'll get back to you via email if we're able to schedule that with the city, CRA, DDA, police, and fire. They're a little bit busy right now, so that may have to wait a week, but we'll be sure to let you know on our daily e-blast. So thank you very much for joining, everyone.
And those 3 women doing next week's program are brilliant.
They are.
Those 3 women are brilliant. I use them for some of my stuff, and I consult with them all the time. So definitely tune in. They have a far prettier punum than me, and we'll definitely provide you with information. And for those of you who don't speak Yiddish, punum is face. So that's just me being my self-deprecating self.
Thank you again, Ron, and thank you everyone for attending. So we'll see you soon on one of our many Zoom meetings and webinars that we have coming up. Thank you.